angry at me because you perceive me as have thrown you under the bus when we all went out to lunch after.
Well, I feel like you threw me under the bus, and I think that you threw me under the bus trying to talk at a table read with industry people. I don't think that was cool.
Oh, not at all. You are so wrong about that. As a matter of fact, it was the polar opposite. I would never, ever throw you under the bus with people in the industry because I know that you want to be in this industry.
Heather Dubrow, the self-proclaimed fancy pants of the Real Housewives of Orange County. To the public, she was everything the franchise loved to showcase: wealth, refinement, and a calm, commanding presence. She lived in multi-million-dollar mansions, wore couture like casual wear, and spoke with the confidence of someone who had mastered her world.
Are you kidding me? I don't want to do this with you. I'm not interested.
Why aren't you? Because the truth is the truth?
No, Tamara, you have your own version of the truth, and I'm not interested in it, honestly.
The truth.
No, I'm fine with the truth. I don't like your nonsense and your spinning
What
of
is
things.
what am I spinning? Tell me what
Tamara,
I'm spinning.
I'm not interested in this.
What
with
is-
you.
what am
You've
I
been
spinning?
doing this for.
But behind that polished image, a darker story grew louder with every season. One built on arrogance, manipulation, and an obsession with control. The woman once seen as the classiest housewife slowly became one of the most polarizing.
Just don't really find you that funny.
You want to make fun of me as an athlete. That is fun.
You need to write down all the rules then, Heather.
No,
because
it's
if
not
I
a
slightly
rule.
go out of bounds, it's the
That's
end
not
of the
a rule.
world. She
No.
can tell you to up all day long, but I slightly go out of the
No,
rules and it's not okay. And I get the finger and I get the things. You're so
There's
afraid
no
of confrontation, but not with me.
Really, I am not afraid of
I
conflict.
know that. Not with me.
Not with
with
anyone.
me. That's how I feel.
Well,
I'm
that's
allowed to have feelings too.
Tonight, we look beyond the marble floors and champagne glasses to uncover the dark side of Heather Dubrow. A story of control, conflict, and a relentless pursuit of the flawless image that ultimately turned against her. Before Bravo fame, Heather was already living a comfortable Hollywood life. She worked as an actress in the late 90s and early 2000s, appearing in sitcoms like That's Life and Jenny. She married Terry Dubrow, a well-known plastic surgeon who would later gain fame from Botched. Together, they embodied success, beauty, money, and ambition. When Heather joined the Real Housewives of Orange County in 2012, she was unlike anyone else on the cast. While others leaned into chaos, Heather carried herself like a woman above the drama. She spoke with precision, kept her home spotless, and reminded everyone, often, of her Ivy League education and refined manners. As her first few seasons unfolded, the cracks began to show. The elegant image that had made her beloved started to feel like armor, one she wore to keep herself above the rest, both literally and emotionally. By the time her first run on the show ended, fans were divided. Was Heather Dubrow truly the class act of Orange County, or simply someone using perfection to hide her own insecurities?
You're supposed to be 2 car lengths behind.
Heather's got her finger pointing technique down. I think she did this. She gets that finger out. She's very, very, very strong about it.
Red wines should be stored around 55 degrees. I'm right.
She has to be right on absolutely everything, and it gets exhausting.
Heather's time on the Real Housewives of Orange County quickly established one thing. She was not just a participant, she was a director in her own reality show. Her castmates often joked that Heather didn't need producers because she already ran the set herself. In the early seasons, her reputation for control became both her defining strength and her biggest flaw. Shannon Beador was one of the first to call it out, accusing Heather of constantly correcting, interrupting, and talking down to others. Tamra Judge, usually unbothered by confrontation, openly described her as condescending. To fans, it became a running theme. Heather wasn't chaotic like some of her castmates. She was controlling, and in a franchise built on unpredictability, that made her both fascinating and frustrating. It wasn't just a personality trait anymore, it was her brand. As Heather's influence grew, whispers began, not from tabloids, but from former castmates and insiders. Many believed Heather wasn't just playing the game, she was controlling it.
No, I'm really genuinely sorry. No matter what, I raised my voice in your home. You put on a beautiful
Oh,
party.
I don't care that you raised your voice in my home, but I invited you to my home and you're talking my husband in my home.
No, I'm not, Heather.
But so, let me tell you something. People say, don't shoot the messenger. Here's what I'm gonna tell you, Gina. Shoot the messenger.
Because if it doesn't exist in my world, I don't know about it. Now, you only know because you told her. And I honestly think it's that you did this. You shouldn't have said anything. What you did in this scenario was
Some co-stars alleged that Heather used her connections with producers and her husband's Bravo fame to shape how she was portrayed. Others noticed that while everyone else's meltdowns made it to air, Heather's missteps seemed to disappear in the edit. Her composure became her weapon. While others yelled, Heather stayed calm, a move that made her look rational and made her opponents seem unhinged. Viewers began to wonder, was Heather genuinely calm, or was she performing calmness to win? Every season she appeared, she managed to come out relatively untarnished, even when surrounded by chaos she helped create. The result? A perception that Heather Dubrow wasn't just a cast member, she was a quiet producer in pearls. Her ability to manipulate tone, image, and timing became part of her mystique. In reality TV, control is currency, and Heather had plenty of it. Of course, no housewife can maintain control forever. When Heather's cool exterior cracked, it made for unforgettable television. Her feud with Kelly Dodd marked one of her most public unravelings. What began as a disagreement over dinner escalated into a screaming match that shattered Heather's calm persona. Kelly accused her of being fake and a bully, and for one of the few times on camera, Heather lost her composure. The 2016 reunion took that tension to a new level. Confronted by multiple cast members calling her manipulative, condescending, and two-faced, Heather reached a breaking point and walked off the stage in tears, a moment that contradicted the composed image she had carefully built for years. When she returned to the franchise years later, hoping for redemption, old patterns re-emerged. Shannon Beador once again clashed with her over-control issues, and newer castmates like Gina Kirschenheiter accused her of acting superior. Heather's wealth and status had always been part of her charm, but now they read as detachment, a woman who couldn't relate to the very people she shared scenes with. The more she tried to present perfection, the more fans saw the tension behind it. Every feud became a crack in her glass facade, showing the frustration of a woman desperate to stay untouchable in a world built on chaos. Heather Dubrow didn't earn the nickname Fancy Pants by accident. She embraced it. The nickname, first coined on the Real Housewives of Orange County, became both a badge of honor and a symbol of everything people either loved or hated about her. From the moment she joined the show, Heather's wealth wasn't just background, it was the storyline. Her multi-million-dollar mansion, her life looked like something out of a luxury magazine, perfectly staged and camera-ready at all times. But what started as aspirational soon became alienating. As fans across America struggled through job losses, housing crises, and inflation, Heather's over-the-top displays of privilege rubbed many the wrong way. Critics called her tone-deaf, the housewife who flaunted a life too far removed from reality. In confessionals and interviews, Heather often said her lifestyle was about standards, not showing off. Behind the diamonds and marble, there was a narrative of insecurity, luxury as a shield. Heather's relentless focus on elegance felt less like confidence and more like control, the need to maintain superiority through material perfection. And in a show built around emotional messiness, her polish began to feel hollow. Heather's world wasn't limited to reality TV. Together with her husband, Dr. Terry Dubrow, the plastic surgeon famous for Botched, she built what some call the Dubrow Empire. It included skincare lines, supplements, books, podcasts, and multiple reality series, all wrapped around the same message. The Dubrows have it figured out, and you can too, if you buy in. Their partnership blurred the line between entertainment, self-improvement, and commerce. The Dubrow name became synonymous with aesthetic perfection, beauty, youth, and wealth as products for sale. But this branding raised questions. Where does empowerment end and exploitation begin? Critics argued that while Terry profited from altering appearances surgically, Heather sold the fantasy of effortless glamour. Their public image preached family values and authenticity, yet their empire thrived on promoting unattainable ideals. Fans began noticing contradictions. One moment Heather spoke about the importance of inner beauty and family unity, the next she was promoting expensive anti-aging treatments and luxury skincare under her name. It wasn't illegal, but ethically, it felt murky. Even within the Bravo fandom, questions lingered. Was Heather a savvy entrepreneur, or was she capitalizing on insecurity? The deeper you looked, the clearer it became. Every public appearance, product launch, And podcast episode wasn't just content, it was advertising. To the public, Heather and Terry Dubrow seemed like the perfect couple. Successful, witty, and balanced. Their banter on screen often came across as affectionate teasing, and Heather proudly portrayed herself as a devoted wife and mother. But as with most reality TV relationships, what was shown wasn't always the full picture. Behind the scenes and on social media, fans began to speculate that Heather's need for control extended into her marriage. Many viewers described her as the CEO of the relationship, a woman managing her husband's schedule, career image, and even household dialogue. Terry, charismatic and humorous, sometimes joked about his wife's perfectionism. But those jokes often revealed tension. During interviews, Heather spoke about the importance of running a household like a business, reinforcing the perception that even love in her world came with structure, planning, and optics. Critics suggested that their marriage, much like their brand, felt curated. Less about connection, more about presentation. Online discussions also hinted at moments where Heather's dominance seemed overbearing. On The Real Housewives, Terry occasionally looked frustrated during arguments, while Heather remained composed, a dynamic fans described as controlled chaos. Their relationship worked as long as the image stayed flawless, but that very perfection was its flaw. Everything was managed, nothing left to chance. The darker truth wasn't dysfunction, but emotional distance. A marriage performed for the cameras, held together by discipline and branding rather than vulnerability. In recent years, Heather found a new platform, her podcast, Heather Dubrow's World. It gave her a direct line to fans, but also a spotlight on her unfiltered opinions. And those opinions often landed her in controversy. Listeners accused Heather of being dismissive, even mocking, toward former co-stars and influencers. Comments that she likely meant as witty or honest came across as arrogant and belittling. Some fans said she used the podcast to rewrite history, painting herself as the misunderstood victim of drama she helped create. Fans on social media began calling her persona robotic or too perfect to relate. Her effort to maintain composure in every context had backfired. People no longer saw her as classy, but cold. Even sympathetic listeners admitted that Heather's inability to show vulnerability made her advice ring hollow. In the end, the podcast controversies didn't just expose a disconnect with fans. They reaffirmed everything critics had said for years, that Heather's perfectionism and superiority weren't confidence, but armor. Heather Dubrow's obsession with luxury has always been part of her identity, and perhaps her downfall, when she sold her massive Orange County mansion for a jaw-dropping $55 million. It wasn't seen as a fresh start. It was seen as another display of excess. Instead of downsizing or embracing simplicity, Heather and her husband Terry almost immediately began building yet another mega mansion. The message to fans was clear: the Dubrows live bigger, spend louder, and flaunt harder. The mansion wasn't just her pride, it was her cage. When Heather left The Real Housewives of Orange County, her public statement framed it as a choice. She said she was stepping away to focus on family, privacy, and new projects, but insiders painted a different picture. Behind the scenes, her polished persona had reportedly worn thin. Some cast members called her controlling, others found her cold. She wasn't the breakout favorite she once was, she was the castmate people tiptoed around. For several years, Heather stayed away, managing her image carefully through her podcast and public appearances. Then, in 2021, Bravo announced her return. Fans expected the fancy pants revival to dominate the new season. Instead, what followed was a shock. Heather didn't fit anymore. The show had changed. Younger cast members, looser energy, and an audience now craving authenticity over status. Heather's brand of perfection felt outdated, almost robotic. Her conversations came across as rehearsed, her reactions calculated. The other women rolled their eyes behind her back. Viewers took to social media calling her detached, irrelevant, and out of touch. Her attempts to reassert control over the show's tone and hierarchy failed completely. The newer housewives didn't fear her, and longtime fans no longer idolized her. Heather Dubrow's story is more than just a reality TV arc. It's a study in the cost of control. On the surface, she had everything: a successful husband, wealth beyond measure, and a carefully curated life. But perfection came with a price. Behind the gleaming marble countertops and flawless interviews, there was emotional distance. Friends described her as hard to reach. Castmates called her cold. Her desire to appear unshakable left no room for real vulnerability. Over time, that control turned isolating. The more she worked to appear perfect, the less relatable she became, even to those closest to her. Her reputation shifted from grace under pressure to icy and self-absorbed. Heather's empire, from her brand partnerships to her media appearances, still stands. But the warmth that once drew viewers in is gone. Her story reminds us that perfection isn't just exhausting, it's unsustainable. It can build a brand, but it can also quietly destroy its authenticity. Heather Dubrow's dark side isn't about crime or scandal. It's about control, the need to dominate her surroundings, her image, and even her relationships. Her downfall didn't come from an explosive controversy, but from the slow erosion of connection. She crafted a life so polished that no one could touch it. And in doing so, she lost the ability to connect with the very people who made her famous. Fans turned away, castmates lost patience, and her name became synonymous with arrogance instead of class. Her journey reveals something bigger about fame itself. When everything becomes about optics, the human element disappears. Perfection can be powerful, but it can also be hollow. In the end, Heather Dubrow didn't just build a mansion, she built a mirror. And when the lights dimmed, the only reflection left staring back was her own obsession with control.